What is up, everybody? It is your boy Farai. Thank you once again for tuning in to another video, man. Shout out Notification Squad. Hope you're doing well and mixing. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you 4 tips for getting smoother sounding rap vocals. 2 tips will be based on recording technique, and the other 2 will be based in the box. So if you're into that, if you want to get smoother vocals, definitely stick around. Definitely make sure to smash that like button. Comment below so I know you're there. Check the links in the description for all that good stuff. With that being said, let's get straight into it. Tip number 1. The first tip, the most important thing that I always learned, is to really move your microphone around, especially when you're recording vocals. What I like to do is pretty much record indirectly to the actual capsule. So as you can see, as I speak right now, I don't have the mic exactly in front of me. You can do that, but especially when recording vocals, and if you have a problem with treble, it's always nice to actually record it a little bit off axis, my bad. And just play around with the mic position. You're definitely gonna find that you can pretty much EQ your voice based on where the microphone is. So for example, if you want a very direct and upfront sound, you might have the mic directly in front of you, but if you want a slightly warmer, more tape sound, you can actually just move the microphone slightly off center, and you're going to get a really interesting sound. So mess around with that. If you want more bass, obviously move forward, move closer, obviously move the mic towards you. If you want more of a trebly balanced sound, you can go a bit further back, obviously depending on what your room sounds like. So that's tip number 1. Try it out. Spend a day just kind of messing around with various different microphone positions, adjust your gain a little bit to see what works for you, and I swear you're going to be getting a lot better sounding rough mixes. So there you go. Tip number 2 would be to comp your vocals. What does that really mean? It really just means to take time to get every single phrase right. Certain artists are capable of, for example, writing a full verse or hook and then singing or rapping the whole verse, but for many of us normal people, we kind of comp vocals. This is what a lot of professional artists do. This is something that I encourage artists to do if they're recording and maybe I feel certain parts could be redone or re-recorded. We'll kind of comp the whole verse or hook or whatever, and really just look for all of the best takes. For example, you might think that a take might be good, but it may have a little bit too much boominess in it. It may have a little bit too much treble or shrill in it, and so me as the engineer would generally recommend for an artist to save that take, but maybe redo it, and then we can kind of chop up certain words. Maybe there's a part that we find a bit too trebly, we could remove that. So definitely try to comp your vocals as well. A bonus tip real quick that I just thought of is to maybe even automate the vocals, right? Maybe you feel a S is too harsh. You can actually just go in, add an automation clip, and just to reduce that little word, just so it sounds a bit better. So comping vocals, definitely something that I have been doing lately, and it works out a lot better because at the end of your recording session, you've pretty much got all of the vocals that you want. Your session is as is, and starting to mix the project, getting that mix going is going to be a lot easier because you're not really worrying about having to fix too many things that should have already been fixed in the recording stage. So let's hop onto the computer. We'll look at the other 2 cool bonus tricks on kind of emulating some really cool analog workflow. Let's get into it. But first, a word from today's sponsor, DistroKid. DistroKid is the easiest way for musicians to get their music onto all the biggest streaming services while handling the background admin to make sure you get paid for your streams. Ever wondered why certain people's YouTube profiles have a verified music note next to their profile name? Well, it means they're running their profile as an official artist channel. An extra benefit to using DistroKid is that you can get your channel verified on YouTube through your DistroKid profile. It's pretty easy to set up and only takes about 7 steps to do. Step number 1. You'll first need to make sure that you have a Google account dedicated to all your music uploads and have at least 1 song released on the Google Play Store. You can release songs on the Google Play Store via DistroKid. Once you've done this, you can follow these steps and claim authentication of your channel through your DistroKid profile. Once your channel is approved, you'll have access to some additional features and benefits to help your channel on YouTube. Some of these features include increased search visibility on YouTube, access to artist-specific tools and analytics within the YouTube studio, and obviously the cool verified music note next to your profile. DistroKid costs only $19.99 US per year, which gives you access to many more features, and if you use my code below, you'll receive an additional 7% off your first year's subscription cost. Check the link below to learn more about DistroKid. Back to the video. Alright, now that we're in the computer, it is time to get going with tip number 3 and 4. So the first tip that I have for you is to pretty much saturate your vocals. The reason why I would say that is because, if we listen to a lot of classic records, most of the vocals or pretty much all of the vocals have come from, really saturating that vocal sound using an analog preamp. I, for example, am a big fan of Neve style preamps. these preamps will have transformers in them. This is something that an audio interface lacks. So even if you don't have a transformer-based preamp, you can still emulate that in the box using free plugins. So what I'm going to do right now is pull up this Analog Obsession Transactor. Is a very interesting name. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, but you know, you get the idea. What I'm going to be doing is, you can watch me, actually let's first listen to the track and then we can see how we can add even more color to our vocals. So let's do that. We'll listen to a little bit of the track. This is the Studio Rack preset chain I've just done, but nonetheless, let's listen to it.
Wait, yeah. Get big drip, I just took a trip to space, yeah. Young boss when I step up in a place, yeah. No birthday, but kinda like a cake, yeah. Cop new diamonds and they jumping out the face, yeah. Yeah, I can't love a thot cause he hoes real fake, yeah. I can trust the op cause the op's real fake, yeah. Coolin' in the cut, I'll be staying out the way, yeah. This is real life, I could teach you how to play, yeah. Going hard, it ain't free. Yeah, shawty, keep it real, keep it G.
Alright, you get the idea. You know, recording with a nice preamp kind of gives you this kind of almost like, it sounds like there's electricity in the vocal sound. It makes it fun to mix. If your interface does not have a transformer to kind of push, you know, I overcrank my Neve to really get that sound. It makes it a lot easier to mix. You can then obviously add a plugin like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this transactor, and I'm going to turn up the input drive. This is essentially going to drive that kind of color warmth, and you're really going to hear a difference. And then we'll kind of mess around with the different flavors. In my opinion, on this certain plugin, the clean transformer is definitely something that can match well with a standard microphone and preamp. So let's try that out.
Wait, yeah. Get big drip, I just took a trip to space, yeah. Young boss when I step up in a place, yeah. No birthday, but kinda like a cake, yeah. Cop new diamonds and they jumping out the face, yeah.
Now, you know, if you really listen closely, you can hear it thins out a little bit of the bass. It kind of does a little bit of EQ in the top end, and as I said, it gives you that electrified sound. So that's the clean transformer sound. As I said before, you know, if I'm using a preamp that has this on it, it's pretty hard to differentiate if we're kind of adding anything. So I'm gonna kind of switch over to the tube transformer. This is emulating more of like a LA2A sound or something like that. Let's try that out.
Wait, yeah. Get big drip, I just took a trip to space, yeah. Young boss when I step up in a place, yeah. No birthday, but kinda like a cake, yeah. Cop new diamonds and they jumping out the face, yeah. Yeah, I can't love a thot cause he hoes real fake, yeah. I can trust the op cause the op's real fake, yeah. Coolin' in the cut, I'll be staying out the way, yeah. This is real life, I could teach you how to play, yeah. Going hard, it ain't free. Yeah, shawty, keep it real, keep it G.
Just sounds really good, super fat. But if we really wanted to take it to the next level, we could actually pull up another you know, analog saturator, because the thing that I think a lot of people miss out on, since so many people haven't grown up with this kind of understanding of analog gear, you know, you might purchase your first audio interface and think that that's it, right? But you know, whenever you go to a studio, you'll realize that audio passes through many different analog stages before it may even reach the box, right? Reach the computer. Maybe even, you know, it might go back out into an analog piece of gear, right? You might send your mix out into something with a transformer in it, etc., or into a mixing console. If you really wanted to emulate that, you could, for example, act as if this was your mic preamp, right? Or maybe even your console, right? And then you might even add in another plugin. So for example, let's just say an Air Windows Bus Color 4 is going to be something amazing, right? We can really emulate different flavors of distortion and really see what we can get. So let's try and mess around with that. We're going to drive the input, turn on the output, and leave with some nice saturation.
Wait, yeah. Get big drip, I just took a trip to space, yeah. Young boss when I step up in a place, yeah. No birthday, but kinda like a cake, yeah. Cop new diamonds and they jumping out the face, yeah. Yeah, I can't love a thot cause he hoes real fake, yeah. I can trust the op cause the op's real fake, yeah. Coolin' in the cut, I'll be staying out the way, yeah. This is real life, I could teach you how to play, yeah. Going hard, it ain't free. Yeah, shawty, keep it real, keep it G. Yeah, all white whip like skis. Pull up to the club, but we pull up in a van.
Can you hear just how we've kind of EQ'd the vocal without pulling up any EQ at all? Absolutely amazing. So that's definitely something I recommend for everyone to try out. Try and mix together different types of distortion if you're using waves, whatever you're using. Personally, this is my favorite blend when it comes to free stuff. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's bad. So definitely try that out. Bus Color 4 from Air Windows, and then Transactor from Analog Obsession, both free. So check those out. So after that, man, tip number 4 would be pretty much to emulate a console workflow. So, you know, why would that be beneficial? As you can see in the Studio Rack chain, we've got an SSL EQ. I'm a big fan of doing general toning with EQ, especially analog style EQ. You can, you know, start using a Neve style EQ, maybe an SSL style EQ. But in my opinion, SSL EQs are the best for kind of starting off your mix with, because it's kind of going to give you an overall, you know, sound to work with, if that makes any sense, right? I'm not trying to do all the heavy lifting with the digital EQ. I'm also starting my mix off with a analog style EQ like the SSL, and that's going to allow me to, for example, you know, reduce some of the low end, right? If I want to get rid of some of that bass, I can do that. If I want to even get rid of some of that high end, I can already kind of start, you know, doing that with this EQ without doing too much. That's the beauty of this. You know, so as you can see, I've done little tweaks here and there, but these little tweaks have really affected how the rest of my mix chain is going to sound. And, you know, that's something I think that has kind of been forgotten in today's world. I think a lot of people are looking at their mix in a two-dimensional way, whereby, you know, when I'm mixing on my console, you kind of have this thing where you're doing a little bit of toning here and there, and that little bit of toning adds up over time. So my recommendation is to put a SSL EQ on your main vocal, put one on the beat, right? You know, put one on, for example, the vocal bus even maybe, and then do slight tweaks here and there, and you're gonna get this overall smooth sound. There's something really beautiful that happens when you push every sound into the same type of plugin or into the same type of hardware. You just get this really nice overall sound. But yeah, man, you know, definitely make use of the compression. Do all these little fun, you know, things that kind of emulate analog. And you don't have to go full analog. As you can see, I'm using an RVox. That's definitely not a analog style compressor per se. But you know, mess around with that, and you know, definitely stay well. Keep mixing every day, and I'll check you out. Make sure to smash that like button. Check out the link for this FLP if you're interested in this Waves chain as well. Comment below if you have questions, and have a great Christmas. Peace out.